G'day guys, welcome back to True Eagle. Today I want to do a video sort of going through the under 21 talent or 21 and under talent we have at the West Coast Eagles and giving a bit of a ranking, giving a bit of a snapshot I guess as to how that talent sits and ranking it in my opinion by quality to some extent. The word young talent is a little bit arbitrary. I've chosen 21 and under specifically because in my head the 2021 draft was the point where we decided we needed a bit more young talent on the list, having missed 3 years of first rounders going into that year. That was kind of the moment, in addition to the things on field sort of turning for the worse, that we started to reinvest in the draft. So we're talking 2021 draft, we take Campbell Chesser, Brady Hoff, Rhett Bazzo, Jack Williams, and I think Greg Clark as well, who's no longer on the list. So basically anyone born in 2003 or later, and giving a bit of a ranking and a bit of an assessment of where they're at and how likely it is, in my opinion, they are to succeed. Analysing our youth is going to be an interesting type of content that we're going to do over this channel probably over the next few years. This is one way of doing it, doing a bit of a ranking as such as to how likely I think they're going to make it, ranking it in terms of importance to us as a club right now. But it is only a snapshot in time, and obviously I could be wrong on some of these guys, but nonetheless we're going to have a look at it. So we've got 19 players, which is a huge chunk of the list, that are born 2003 or later. So everyone including your Cat B rookies, your genuine rookie lists, as well as the guys we've taken in the first round, or even pick one in Harley Reid's case. So I've got 19 players. I'm going to rank them from the bottom up and just give you my thoughts on where they sit as a young West Coast Eagles talent. So let's start with the bottom. Now, there's a bunch of players here that I'm going to plead ignorance here to some extent. Now, I'm not completely ignorant to these players. You know, I did my pre-draft analysis on a bunch of these players. I've watched their highlights tapes. I have scoured through pretty much every waffle report we've ever had, so I'm not going in completely blind, but I'm also not going to sit here and say, you know, I've watched this guy in depth, these are his strengths and weaknesses, in the same way that I can probably, you know, give it a fair assessment on someone like a Ruben Jinby, who we've seen 20 odd times at AFL level. There's some names here that I'm just pleading a little bit ignorance, and I've got a bit of a hunch. So bear with me that, and by all means let me know in the comments what you disagree with. So we're going to start with a bunch of guys who have either played 1 or 0 games at AFL level. So at the bottom we've got Jordan Baker, Cohen Livingston, Harvey Johnston, Locke Rawlinson, Clay Hall. Actually, you know what? I'll throw Kobe Burgeel into this mix as well as an uncapped player. So this is sort of a group that I'm grouping together. And the order here I'm not completely fixated on. Jordan Baker here being the least ranked talent on our list seems harsh, and I think he's tracking okay, but he was a Cat B rookie and, you know, isn't really close to the AFL team at the moment, and I haven't actually seen much of the footage of this guy. Cohen Livingston, by contrast, you know, I saw him play in the preseason game against Freo. Nonetheless, you know, not really anywhere near the team. Harvey Johnston, again, late draft pick last year. I've seen a little bit of him. It sounds like he had a pretty good waffle debut last week. 19 touches, really good on his team defense. Again, it's just so early that I don't really know where to track him, but nonetheless had a pretty positive outing in his first game. Locke Rawlinson's above. Again, you know, I've seen this guy play once as a sub, and actually that's not true. I saw him in the preseason game where he laid 8 tackles, and what he's doing for his small size is quite impressive, and I think that rightfully rockets him up. Why do I have him below Clay Hall? Clay Hall hasn't played a game, but Locke Rawlinson has. Well, a little bit of apples and oranges here. It's always going to be a little bit easier for a small forward to crack an early debut than it is a inside midfielder, for instance. So that's one thing I'll probably make a point here, is that this is not so much a power rankings. This is not what they've achieved so far. This is not the quality of which they've played so far either. This is sort of a ranking on talent. I think Clay Hall has some good AFL traits. I think Locke Rawlinson does too. Locke Rawlinson's coming a little bit further back, given his small stature. And I do think he might be, you know, at least a medium-term AFL player for us, which is, you know, a great start with 1 game into his career. But this is where I'll make the point as well. Like, players in how they're playing right now at AFL level, whether they've played 20 games, whether they've played 4 games, it's not really a reliable predictor of how good they are as talents. I saw a comment, I can't remember which video, I think it was after the Bulldogs loss, and it was clearly a Bulldogs fan who commented, well, this settles the debate. Riley Sanders is going to be better than Harley Reid. Now, I've had some dumb comments in my time. That's up there with some of them. I don't mean to be too mean, but that's the sort of stuff I was posting on Big Footy when I was 15. I actually remember a really famous thread where a Melbourne fan had started a poll about who was the worst first-round draft pick in the 2008 draft, and had names like Phil Davis, Nick Naitanui, guys who just hadn't really played yet. Jack Watts was left off the list, funnily enough, and one of the highest votes was like Phil Davis, and Phil Davis became a genuine gun. The point there being, like, it doesn't really matter to what extent they're playing well at the moment. We're looking at traits and attributes. So leading on from that's we've covered a bunch of guys who haven't played AFL. Kobe Burgeel is another one of those. I like what I see of him. It's too early to really call. Like, I've talked him up. His waffle performances have been solid. He is a smaller midfielder forward that sort of reinvented into a running defender, and he's got some nice traits and is not really close to an AFL debut, it seems, at the moment. Obviously, he's got his appendix issues. He's had injury issues since he's come to the club. Again, if we're ranking on attributes, I think he probably has the best attributes of any of these guys. But again, if you're ranking on who's likely to be the better player, then I feel a little bit more confident about Clay Hall. So this is where it's a little bit arbitrary. We're talking about players who haven't played a game yet. Now, with that out of the way, I can give you some more concrete rankings in my opinion. The next 4 talents that I have: Jai Culley, Tyrell Dewar, Jack Williams, and Archer Reed. So this is, again, still a little bit trickier to split. Why do I have Dewar over Culley? Now, I think Culley looks pretty rock solid. The thing about Culley, he's got some genuinely AFL traits. Like, he's a really good mark. He is a pretty prolific tackler and finds the footy pretty well. My concern with him is he a little bit slow to play inside mid at AFL level? I think there's a stark contrast between someone like a Culley and the 3 young mids we've got in Hewitt, Jinby, and Reed. Like, from an athletic profile point of view. Now, we've seen Culley play forward, and he kicked 4 goals and got a Rising Star nomination against Port Adelaide. But it's a pretty small sample size. Like, is he better off being a third tall forward? Is he a strong marking forward who rotates through the guts? You know, maybe. I don't actually feel super confident about Jai Culley, and I'm trying to be honest here. By contrast, Tyrell Dewar has played a fair bit less, and I've seen increasingly positive things from him that I think he has more clear AFL traits to me, and that's why he slightly edges Culley, and I do think it's probably only a matter of time before Dewar gets a debut. I think he's kicked 4 goals in 2 weeks so far, and he was a Cat B rookie that was so raw going into his first season last year, playing in a severely talent deficient team in the Waffle last year, and he really held his own. So I think I'm a little bit more confident on someone like a Dewar than I am a Culley. So then let's talk about the 2 key forwards, Archer Reed and Jack Williams. Now, obviously, Jack Williams has proven a lot more. He's had a pretty damn good career so far, considering he shouldn't really, like, by all logic, been anywhere near an AFL team, you know, in his first couple of years on an AFL list. And what's he played? 10 games now, and currently in the best 22, probably because of Oscar Allen's out. But again, if we're assessing on traits, I don't think he's as gifted as Archer Reed. And Archer Reed, you know, hasn't even played a Waffle game yet. So I'm sort of ranking these two on talent. Now, I think Jack Williams could be a fairly good medium-term depth key forward option for us who can be a backup ruck, and I actually think he could be a better and slightly less cumbersome version of a Fraser McInnes. And, you know, hopefully play more games. I think he's going to be reliable, but I don't see the same traits, and he doesn't have the same athletic profile as someone like an Archer Reed, who is 203 centimeters, marks at the highest points, super athletic, really good turning circle. So again, obviously it's not about who's more proven, but I think Archer Reed on talent probably projects as a more important talent, if you want to put it that way. Cool, so in this list of 19 young talents, I've talked about the bottom 10, and now we can start talking about the top 9, where we've seen a little bit more of them at AFL level. The 9th best player, I think, is Rhett Bazzo. Now, this might be controversial, but I would urge people not to have too short of memories with Bazzo. I think he struggled last year, but don't forget the context going into that season. First of all, from a personal point of view, like, he tragically lost his mother in a horrific accident right on the edge of the season, then goes into an AFL team where in some games he was the only listed key defender we had, super raw. So I probably more look at what he produced in 2022. We saw a bit of him there, and I think as a third tall defender, I think first of all, his skills were probably a little bit better than I expected. I think he's a good intercept player. Rebounds okay for a big man. I think this guy's got a future at AFL level. I don't say necessarily a future All-Australian or anything like that, but someone worth persevering with. And right now he's injured with a groin injury. So hopefully, you know, we can be patient with him, let him build through the Waffle. We kind of need a good key defender to come good. I think Rhett Bazzo projects to me like a more likely type than the talls I've got below. I think he's got a little bit more in his bag than, say, a Jack Williams, and an Archer Reed. You know, I can't rank higher than Bazzo because I just haven't really seen enough of him. Then we got Campbell Chesser, and I'm still pretty positive on Chesser. I think this guy obviously has missed a whole stack of football. We've all heard it before, and we've seen him be a little bit hot potato at the moment at AFL level. And there's been some discourse in the comments that I agree with, and I think Chesser probably actually looks better as an inside mid or as an on-baller rather than, you know, a wingman. And wings tend to get lost in our system. It's become the new high half forward. I remember, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, if you played high half forward at West Coast, you barely got a touch, and the player that got dropped each week was probably the player playing in that role. Someone like a Wellingham or a Maston or a Redden, like, these guys notoriously just came in and out of the side in like 2017. Now it's our wingmen don't get the ball, which is weird. So either way, I like what I see with Chesser. I think he makes good decisions. You know, I don't think his foot skills are dangerous enough to put him on the wing. He's got some good speed. Put him at centre bounces. I think he has shown what it takes in terms of, like, finding the ball. Yeah, he gets lost a little bit. Sometimes I feel like he doesn't call for the ball enough. I think it's probably a confidence thing. Either way, slow burn, but I think there's some genuine AFL traits there. Then I've got Harry Barnett. Now, this one is a little bit controversial, but again, really unproven, but sort of like Jack Williams. The fact that he's been near the AFL team, well, when he made his debut, it was kind of necessity, but he earned his second game at AFL level after some strong form in the waffle, and again, so young for a ruck. I think he actually is quite an important young talent for us. We need some key position talent. We don't have a lot. He's actually the highest rated key position talent that I've got in this list. But he's pretty good mobile ruck, you know, he'll build his competitiveness over time. I think we've got a genuine AFL ruck in there in Harry Barnett. Now, every player I've talked about so far has some genuine question marks on them, as they should. They're under 21 talents. Nobody has necessarily proven themselves worthy or unworthy at this point. However, with the final 6 players here, we're getting increasingly confident, in my opinion. I'm getting increasingly confident that these guys are going to be good AFL players. So the lowest ranked player I have out of that top 6 is Ryan Marrick. Now, Marrick is kind of a little bit similar to Cully in that it's kind of a case of what is his best position, and I don't consider him a genuine key forward. That could change. You know, when Darling was first drafted, there was talk that he wasn't a true key forward. Mind you, he then kicked 50 goals in 2012 in his second year when Kennedy got injured. But he's still finding his feet. There's a little bit of probably some miscommunication about his height. I think he's listed as 196 centimeters. Adam Simpson said he was 191. I'm pretty sure the truth is in the middle. I think he's about 193. But either way, it's his traits that make him, in my head, not a true key forward. I do think, you know, I've probably compared him a little bit to a Gunston, like a lead-up, taller type, good skills going inside 50. Right before recording this video, I actually think a better comparison might be Mark Lacroix. Now, I don't necessarily think he'll be as good as Mark Lacroix. Lacroix kicked 440 goals. But attribute-wise, like Lacroix was only 182 centimeters, but he wasn't a crummy forward. He kind of was a old-school full forward. At least in like 2010, when, you know, he was playing out of the goal square and genuinely like leading and marking above his head. On top of that, really smooth skills Lacroix had, which Marrick does as well, and driving the ball inside 50 is something he could be good at. So for us, it's about harnessing Marrick's talents, getting the right guys around him. Ideally, he's the third tall, sort of like a Waterman, really. But either way, genuine AFL level talent, and we need to nurture that talent. Now let's talk about Noah Long. Now I think we all see it with Noah Long. Obviously, at the moment going through a little bit of a patch where he's struggling to get his hands on the footy. He hasn't really proven an ability to win a lot of the footy. But playing high half forward in his second year for a smaller player, it's not an easy role to actually find a lot of the footy. So I'm a little bit forgiving that he can't find his hands on the footy, but what we do see with Long is this ability to just improve our position on the field every time he gets the ball. I don't think he's made too many mistakes. He's classy, he hits the ball at speed, he's generally been clean. Would be nice if he hits the goals more. I don't think he's a truly natural goal sneak. So again, another player where we just need to find the right role for him. With Long, I think it's class that he brings, which I'd contrast to a Cripps. Now, Cripps does have some class. Like, he certainly honed that. I think it took like 5 years before we see Cripps really became a classy player. But he's also an animal defensively, which Long probably hasn't proven yet. So either way, we've got a very classy AFL level talent there. Does he become a midfielder in time? Maybe. Maybe. He was drafted as a midfielder, he converted. Same thing with Locke Rawlinson. So either way, it's just about finding the right spot in the field for Noah Long, but I think he's had a fairly decent start to his career. Then we got Brady Hough, and this guy has turned into a bit of an unsung hero at the moment. He's been a gem. Now, I think against Sydney, I'm recording this before the Richmond game, but against Sydney, I feel like there was a couple of first half errors, but then you look at some of the guys this guy has shut down, like Papley, Toby Green, Cody Waitman, like none of them kicked more than 2 goals, and some of them were well down on their usual output. And this is off the back of last year where he did the same thing against Charlie Cameron, kept him to 7 disposals and goalless. Like, this guy is a seriously gun player, but not in a sense that he is going to get plaudits from the broader AFL community. So we just need to be appreciative of what Brady Hough does. Now, what is his best position? To be honest, I only have him 4th. Like, on exposed form, he's arguably number 1 on this list. Like, he's done more than Reid, Ginbey, and Hewitt. But for me, probably just ranked a little bit low because the other 3 are genuine on-ball primary midfielders, and I'll get to them in a moment. But Brady Hough has been sensational. Again, once upon a time, he looked like a midfielder forward. That's certainly what he was drafted as. Played a little bit of wing in his first year. Now he's a bit of a Shepherd-esque lockdown, defensively minded defender. Do we see that evolve into something else in the future? I'm not sure, but Brady Hough is a star. Now let's talk about the 3 amigos, and I have ranked our top 3 midfielders as Reid, Hewitt, and Ginbey. Now, Reid, I think, speaks for itself. Like, this guy is so talented. It's ridiculous. Like, he has the blend of so many different attributes. Now, I don't ever think he's going to be a 40-2 type player. He's different to Sheasel, he's different to Dacos. He's a bit more impact, lower possession, win a few clearances. He's got this blend of like Judd-like strength and also the outside class and ball use of a Ben Cousins. What he doesn't have is Ben Cousins' running capacity. So I'm not saying he is literally like those two players combined. And he's not quite as quick as Judd off the mark. But in terms of strength in the contest, pushing players off, breaking tackles, but also on the outside, just seeming like he's jogging but still like running past players and then delivering the ball really, really well. On top of that, swings forward, clunks marks. I don't think he's ever going to be a 50-goal forward. I don't know what his goal kicking is like. But gee, secret weapon. You already know about Harley Reid. So why do I have Hewitt above Jimby? For me, I think Hewitt just looks a little bit more of a natural footballer and certainly has an ability around goals as well, which I like, and the ability to win plenty of the ball. Now with Jimby, power athlete, absolute star, but you feel like he's still learning to become a genuine midfielder. He was a convert. I think he was a defender even in his draft year, and then played for WA in the championships and won the WA MVP award in that role. But still, I think you look at his stats in his draft year, not too many games over 20 possessions, and you look at AFL level, and again, I think he's just had the 2 out of 20 odd games where he's hit more than 20 touches. That being said, he's still going to be a good player. What I think his weaknesses are probably at AFL level is he gets led to the ball a little bit too much, and he's not really showing that ability to go and win the ball himself. But I do think he's made up ground in this area. And that's why he's still, a top 3 talent at West Coast. But on top of that, even if he's not finding the ball himself, what he is tracking players down, laying crunching tackles. He's still winning clearances to some extent. Finding his best position will be interesting. Some people have considered him, maybe a third tall defender. Well, his kicking's not amazing, which I think is going to be kind of key if you're going to be running out of the back half and using your speed. We want to harness those skills, the defensive pressure, the physicality, the speed, the endurance. Is it wing? Again, not super polished by foot, but in my opinion, we try and get this guy to develop as a genuine on-baller like we're doing. I wouldn't change what we're doing, but I don't think he has the natural class and a game-breaking ability of an Elijah Hewitt. So either way, you look at that midfield trio and it's hot. It's hot, and I feel relatively confident on all 3 of those players. So looking at this list holistically, what does it lack? Well, I think it lacks reliable key position players. Like, who's the highest ranked player I had? Harry Barnett's played 2 games. Yeah, you'd be silly to say that he's locked in to be a star. Jack Williams, I think, has been rock solid, punching above his weight. Seriously impressed by the kid. Like, he's doing a great job. I just don't think he's quite as talented. Archer Reed hasn't played a game yet. Ryan Marrick probably isn't a key forward. Rhett Basil as well started his career really promisingly, had a whole stack of adversity, needs to build up some confidence and form, and still could only be a third tall defender, we don't know. So we do need Harry Edwards to come good, but Harry Edwards is too old for this list, as is someone like a Zane True, as is someone like a Tyler Brockman. But anyway guys, those are some rambling thoughts about our youth. Let me know in the comments what you agree with and disagree with. I'm sure there's going to be heaps of disagreement. This is the way I see it, but let me know in the comments and I'll try and clarify anything. I always find that I misphrase something in a video and it gets taken a little bit out of context, and that's understandable. So I'm probably done it again, but look forward to the comments, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.